back to our channel. My name is Jasmine.
And I'm Dave.
And this is Engineered by God, where we navigate life from a Christian perspective. And we are going to be collabing on our first collab. Yeah. And we are going to be talking about, in total, 10 questions to ask before you get married. We're going to talk about 5, and we'll link Keva and Adriel's channel in the description box so you can get the other 5 questions.
Hey guys, I'm Keva.
And I'm Adriel.
And we're from Dishin With the Chablals. Now, in order for you guys to get the 5 remaining questions you should ask your partner before you get married, head over to our page and we'll fill you in. See you guys soon.
But let's get into it.
So disappointment comes from unmet expectations, and whether you talk about them or not, you guys are both going into this union with a set of expectations. So it's important that you just lay them all out so that you guys are on the same page. And the first question to ask is, who's washing the dishes? But honestly though, I think sometimes when you're in the season of getting married and you're thinking about you're engaged and all that stuff, sometimes the practical things, you don't really consider them. And I think it's really important. I remember we did this in premarital counseling. Let's make a list of all the practical things that we got to do from a day to day. And how do we actually see us doing that together? Are you going to be the one, cooking? Am I going to be the one cutting the lawn? What are our expectations, and how do we kind of adjust to what you expect and what I expect?
Right. Because I think it's good, because maybe one person thinks, oh, this person is just going to be solely responsible for cooking, and this person is going to be solely responsible for taking out the trash, right? But then it turns out that person hates touching the garbage and the other person doesn't like to cook at all. Dave. So, I just think it's good to help get those things out before and talk about those things before, because then you're just going to be living your daily life and you going to be like, so why you ain't in the kitchen?
And the thing too, this conversation typically can be a moment to create some more intimacy, because a lot of those expectations come from how we were raised, right?
Yeah.
If you seen your mom being the person who did X, Y, and Z, and your dad was the person who did A, B, C, right? You might think, I'm just gonna do what my dad did, right? And for your future, I was like, no, you're not. That's not gonna work for me. But it's gonna be able to unpack some of the reasons why you have some expectations and maybe work through those if you need to.
Yeah. It's definitely better to alleviate the situation if there's a little bit of tension when you get behind the why. Right. I think that's really good. So second question is basically what are your expectations about how we spend our free time, our individual free time? Right. Yeah.
So I'll start on this one. So when you're dating, right? I remember this. When you're dating, every time that you guys meet up, it's on purpose. So if if you're in each other's space, it's to do things with each other, right?
Right.
But once you get married, you just around each other for no reason. Yeah, I'm just here, you here. And so there's a lot more time together that maybe you just want to do something for yourself, or your wife wants to do something for herself. And it's kind of all right, you got to talk about, hey, what does that practically look like? Personal example. I just want to say it's one personal example. I'm not sure if you're going to say it too. So when I go to spend time with my family, it's pretty short. I go there for an hour, maybe 2, and I'm back home, right? And so Jess is when we first got married, she said, hey, I'm about to go see my mom for a little bit. For her, a little bit, it's a half a day, maybe a full day. I'm like, yo, where are you at, right? And so my idea of going out to see my family and hers is very different. So my expectation is, I'm gonna see you in a couple hours, and she ain't come home till midnight. I'm like, yo, what's going on here? So talking about your free time and how you guys expect to use it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit everything on the head. But yeah, I think that's really important, especially like you said, when you talk about your friends. How often do you expect to go just hang out with your friends without your spouse? And even things in the house, if you have hobbies that you want to do, how much time do you expect to devote to those hobbies? And what's the other person doing in that time, So, I just think it's really good to make sure you guys have those kind of, lay down that kind of foundation.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
So continuing with our whole expectation theme, the next thing is your sex expectations. What are your expectations surrounding sex?
Yeah, and this was definitely a good thing in couples counseling too, because we talked about like how many times a week do you want to have sex? Like, what is a healthy sex life for you? And luckily we were pretty much on the same page, but some people are just like every day, and other person's like once a week, you know? So it's good to kind of have those things and get those things out. Not even just how often, but like, you know, what are your turn ons? What are your turn offs? What is like absolutely no when in the bedroom, you know? And just kind of those type of things. It's good to just talk about it. And also, I think there are a lot of people, well, and also in general, I just think it's good to just make sure that you guys start your marriage off having detailed conversations about sex, because that is really what's going to make or break your sex life, honestly. Because if you don't want to talk about, I actually don't like it when you do that to me, and you're just going to let them keep doing it and you hate it, then obviously it's not going to be that as good of an experience as it could be.
Right. And the good thing about these conversations is that in them, hopefully you get to talk about the why, right? Someone's like, I want to have sex every day. You might want to know like why. Like, why is this important to you to do this every day? Because you might realize it's something that's more than just the act of sex. And that might help you if you're the person who only wants to do it once. Maybe like, wow, I understand your why so much more. Let's do it a couple more times. But the person who's like, I only want to do it once, they have their own why. And I'm like, all right, maybe not 7 days. Maybe let's come down to 3. Whatever that thing is. But you get to talk about the why behind your reasons. So talk about your expectations for sex. But go ahead.
And I also want to say that a lot of people have this mindset that sex is marriage is a place where your sex life goes to die, basically. And I come against that because, like I said, if you guys have open communication, like this is a time I feel like you're going to be with this person forever. Y'all should be talking about everything. They should become like, this is what we talked about this in premarital counseling, but they should become like an expert in you and how to please you and the things that you like and the things that you don't like. And it should become like, they should be the best at knowing what to do for you, you know? So it's like practice makes perfect, and you guys get a lot of time to practice and make it perfect for you guys.
So after you guys finish talking about sex, you want to talk about how you're going to put God first in your marriage. But seriously, the question is, how are we going to put God first in our marriage? Listen, if you don't plan on it, it's just not going to happen by accident. I know this was a struggle for us early on in our marriage. And to be honest, to this day, it can still be a struggle. You know how to have your own personal relationship with God. She knows how to have her own personal relationship with God. But how do we come together and do this? How do we pray together? What does that look like? Like for me growing up, I grew up, my family's Haitian. I've grown up in Haitian churches. And typically during a Haitian prayer, everyone is praying at maximum volume. They're all screaming out loud, like we're all into it at the same time. And when Jazz prays in her church, is like, one person at a time. Dear Father God, we come to you right now, and we just want to thank you. So it's a very different and styles and expectations and how often a week are we going to do this? So if you guys have. First of all, I mean, if especially if you're a Christian, God has to be the center of your marriage, right? It has to be the foundation. But what is that? What are we gonna do daily? What are we gonna do weekly? What are we gonna do monthly to make sure that He is actually the center of our relationship and not just something that we just say as a catchy slogan? Right.
And like going off that, even talking about the basically the foundation of your marriage. Like, what does it look like in both of you guys' opinion to have a godly marriage, to have a family centered on Christ? Like, what are we doing in our household to support those things? What does submission look like? What does headship look like? Those different type of things. You want to get into those questions and talk about like how we move together as a unit and how we support each other to live out the ultimate calling that God has given everybody, right? So yeah.
And so the last good?
No,
So the last thing we want to talk about, and it's really important, is, are you committed to counseling? So every relationship's different. Everyone's not gonna get along swimmingly right away. You might have some hurdles. You might have a great first 5-10 years, and then after that you hit some some roadblocks. And it's important, just like in every other thing, you go to see an expert for whatever your issue is. Your car is broken, you take it to the mechanic. Your teeth is messed up, you go to the dentist. It's the same thing in your relationship. If you're hitting some roadblocks, talk to someone who is trained to help you guys kind of wrestle through things that maybe might be a little too much for you.
Right. And we've said this before, but we definitely recommend pre-marriage counseling before you guys get married, because it is just a good place for someone on the outside to look at you guys, see all the great things and pull those things out more, and then challenge you guys on some of the weaker areas in your relationship. And hopefully they don't tell you that y'all aren't meant to be. But yeah, it's definitely a great place to start your marriage off on the right foot. And like Dave said, you being with somebody where if you guys are going through a rough patch and your spouse is just like, I do not want to go to couples counseling, I think that can make the situation even worse.
You know what it kind of reminds me of too? Cause I want to say it's also important to, it's not exactly counseling, but continued learning of relationships as you grow. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like with work, for example, you have like continued learning where you're not going back to school, but you might take a course or you might go to a conference or something. So you're learning more information about what you do. Yeah,
that's definitely really important, because we have a lot of things that a lot of couples maybe on YouTube or just pastors or what have you, who we admire their perspective on marriage and the different questions that they bring up. And we definitely okay, that was a good point. Let's talk about that in our marriage, and it definitely it definitely helps. Right. Continue learning in anything. It's great. Right. Yeah. So, anything else?
No, that's it. I mean, those are our 5. Make sure if you haven't watched that you go watch Keva and Adriel's 5 so that you can see the whole set of 10, and make sure that you know these questions before you get married, because they are going to be really important.
Yeah. And if you like this video, we hope that you guys like it, that you guys subscribe, and let us know if you go over there and watch Keva and Adriel's video. Let us know. We want to know that you guys actually went over there and clicked,
right.
So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and that's it for us. See ya.